Hi, welcome to Advanced Social Psychology. My name is Cheryl Arbelias, and I am a graduate student with Liberty University studying developmental psychology. I am the presenter for this week's content material for Advanced Social Psychology 512. The students' assignments for this week included a video presentation titled Introduction to Social Psychology by Dr. Benjamin Wood, reading textbook material from Social Psychology 10th edition by Casson, Fine, and Marcus. Reading textbook material from Derek Cady titled Theories in Social Psychology, and journal article readings by Stanley Milgram titled Behavioral Study of Obedience, and journal article readings by Haney, Banks, and Zimbardo titled A Study of Prisoners and Guards in a Simulated Prison. To begin this presentation, I will briefly summarize the reading material. Students were presented this week with an introduction of a broad overview of social psychology. Casson et al. Takes its reader through a broad view of social psychology and at times breaks down this broad view into individual areas of distinction. It is a broad and diverse field, and depending on one's area of interest in the subject, the focus is different. Casson et al. Discusses how there is a distinction between social psychology and other branches of psychology. Social psychology is defined as the scientific study of how individuals think, feel, and behave in a social context. This week's coursework material describes differing behaviors in different social contexts. This presentation will seek to explain how people respond in different social environments. Social psychologists are interested in how a person thinks, feels, and behaves in unique social contexts. To summarize the course material for this week, the authors defined social psychology and its relationship to other psychological disciplines, the history of social psychology, current topics and trends, theories, research methods, research designs, and experiments were described as seen in the Milgram and Zimbardo studies, and ethics in social psychology were also discussed. The basic tenet to social psychology is one's interest in knowing and researching why people think, feel, and behave the way they do. It is important to understand how social psychology differs from other disciplines. How is social psychology, or how does social psychology distinguish itself from other branches of psychology? This week's lesson takes a look at that in more detail. Social psychology is very broad in nature and is concerned with a variety of diverse topics, attitudes, and contexts. Social psychology typically focuses on, quote, the psychology of the individual. This approach to understanding individuals is different than other disciplines such as sociology that classifies people in terms of their nationality, race, social economic class, and other group factors, end quote. Social psychologists examine both social and non-social factors that affect people's thoughts, emotions, motives, and actions. And the social psychologists are interested in how a person's behavior changes in relation to those non-social factors. They are looking at what influences an individual's behavior. With social psychology being so broad and so diverse, there are many different approaches to research of how people think, feel, and behave the way they do. The course material discussed what influences one and their motivations. Scientific methods are used as a way to approach theories and questions that need to be answered. Research offers correlation and experimental research. Different research designs are used as a way to conclude in a non-biased way as to the answers to the questions social psychological researchers ask. Ethical guidelines must always be followed when performing any research experiment. There are 5 topics related to the field of social psychology I would like to discuss. They include integration of emotion, motivation, and cognition, genetic and evolutionary perspectives, the social brain and body, behavioral economics Political and Moral Issues and Other Interdisciplinary Approaches, New Technologies and the Online World. Integration of emotion, motivation, and cognition is the first topic I would like to discuss. This social psychology topic studied social cognition from a cold and hot perspective. Casson et al. Describes the cold social cognition perspective as one that emphasizes the role of cognition and de-emphasizes the role of emotion and motivation when explaining social psychological issues, whereas a hot perspective focuses on the emotion and motivation as determining factors to one's thoughts and actions. This topic discusses the motivating factors between one's desire to be right and one's desire to feel good about oneself. This topic was seen in Milgram's behavioral obedience study, where some subjects had difficulties continuing with the experiment because they did not feel good about what they were doing to another individual. However, they continued because they desired to be right in the sight of one who was ordering them to continue with the experiment no matter the pain the electric shock caused. The second topic I would like to discuss is genetic and evolutionary perspectives. This area of study within the field of psychology researches behavioral genetics and examines the effects of genes on one's behavior. Evolutionary perspectives use the principles of evolution to better understand human behavior. Evolutionary perspectives evaluate the underlying issues such as jealousy and underlying situations that are likely to trigger jealousy. The third topic I would like to discuss is the social brain and body. This topic basically discusses how our brains and bodies are influenced by our social experiences. The research for the social brain and body perspective emphasizes the interaction between the physical and the social. More specifically, there is emerging development in social neuroscience, which is defined by Casson et al. As, quote, the study of the relationship between neural and social processes, end quote. An example given by Casson et al. Is how an individual who plays a violent video game may show signs of violence or acts of aggression. Another area of research in this topic of social brain and body is known as embodied cognition and focuses on the close links between the mind and the positioning, experiences, and actions of the body. This social brain and body perspective could be viewed as that seen in the Zimbardo Journal article in research study titled A Study of Prisoners and Guards in a Simulated Prison. The fourth topic I would like to discuss is behavioral economics, political and moral issues, and other interdisciplinary approaches. This area of social psychological research is a relatively new area of study and focuses particularly on social and cognitive psychology as it relates to economic decision making. This area of study also involves areas such as politics and moral philosophy and environmental studies as it relates to public health and other related areas to address how people can conserve energy, adopt healthier habits, and make improvements to school surroundings and improve education. The fifth topic I would like to discuss is new technologies and the online world. New technologies have provided researchers with non-invasive images of how the brain works. This approach to research provides the researchers with a non-invasive way to address questions that they could not have previously attempted. Some of these new technologies include the positron emission tomography, or the PET scan, event-related potential, ERP, transcranial magnetic stimulation, TMS, and functional magnetic resonance imaging, fMRI, as a way to study the interconnections of the brain and, quote, discrete thoughts, feelings, and behavior, end quote. The availability of the online community has also made research much more accessible than previous. One of the theories discussed was that of the interdependence theory developed by John Tiebout and Harold Kelly, and included the derivation of Lewin, who said that human behavior is the result of an individual in a social context. Lewin was the father of social psychology. The interdependence theory can be seen when studying Zimbardo's research about the prisoners and the guards. One specific example is that the interdependence requires some form of reliance on one another for rewards. The guard and the prisoner would both receive compensation of $15 per day, but they were also reliant on each other in order to receive that benefit. Without a guard, there would be no prisoners, and without prisoners, there would be no guard. And without either, there would be no monetary compensation benefit. As Casson et al. Mentioned in the text, social psychology is very broad and covers many different disciplines. This week's lesson and coursework encompassed a great deal of information. There are 2 questions I would like to present to the group. The first question is, which theorist do you believe provided the largest contribution to the field of social psychology? The second question is, in what ways do his or her contributions in the field of social psychology align with biblical principles? I am reminded of 1 Corinthians 10:13 as I began pursuing a graduate degree in developmental psychology, that whether therefore ye eat or drink or whatsoever ye do, do it all to the glory of God. We were reminded this week that social psychology is a growing and broad field of research study. What an exciting field to grow in knowledge and understanding of why people think, feel, and behave the way they do. As Christians, may we also continually seek to integrate biblical principles in our lives so that we can offer hope and comfort to a hurting world through Christ.